Okay, I'm on Isabela Island with my good friend Sebastian. I met Sebastian last year and we became good friends. He had a little different look last year. He had real long hair. And if it wasn't for Sebastian, it would have been impossible for me to do this project this year. He really was instrumental in helping it become a reality.
It's a pleasure.
Tell me a little bit about what makes Isabela so special, Sebastian.
Yes, Isabela, this island, as you know already, Billy, is so beautiful. It's untouched. We have flamingos, penguins, flightless cormorants. It's a beautiful place. This island, Isabela, we can say is the jewels of the crown of the Galapagos, because everything is here, just in this island. It's the hot spot of the Galapagos. It's where all the energy is. This island is alive. The problem that we have on the islands around the world of the debris. These islands are like a magnetic attraction for debris.
Most people back home, when they mention the Galapagos, they're like, oh, well, how do you stay there? I mean, they don't even know there's communities. They don't know there's a church. They don't know there's a school. They think it's just nothing. It's good for them to realize, hey, even this pristine place is getting affected by humans.
Yes.
What I wanted to try to do is I wanted to make these large sculptures around the island.
Very good.
As a warning to humans that, hey, this stuff can come alive in a beautiful way, but look at it. It can come alive, and it will destroy humans if we keep doing it. Yes, it will.
We have to focus on good things that focus on nature, because nature is what gives us life. And we have to live in harmony with nature. All the animals, they live in harmony with nature, but not us. Not humans, man.
No.
And we have to begin living in harmony with nature.
By daybreak, we had sailed about 3 hours north. Billy immediately found a shoreline that had debris on a small beach. We had Alvaro prepare the landing boat, and we launched to go ashore.
So we had to anchor in a little cove, come out with a little boat, go along the coast with probably 6-foot waves. We couldn't land, so we had to go down the shore a little more. The problem is, like all islands in the world, debris is coming from every angle. It's an island. There's so much trash in the oceans that every island in the world is getting affected.
There were no trails to follow, no paths. These areas weren't easily accessible.
It was like walking along miles of razor blades. If you fell on this stuff, you were cut up. The boots that I had were just completely destroyed by the end of the trip. So you had to be very careful, and there were spots where it could collapse under you, and all of a sudden you're in a chasm. 75% of the debris was from ships, plastic container ships, cargo ships, fishing ships.
what better example to show that even the most pristine of locations is not excusable to trash and debris.
As I'm collecting, something comes to mind. It all comes from what I find, what I'm thinking. You know, when I'm hiking to find the materials, it's the process. You know, it's all about the spontaneity, the environment, what I find there.
That beach was not that wide, and as wide as it was covered with debris from side to side. The location that the captain decided to drop anchor was a surprise to me. The seas were kind of choppy and we were rocking already. It was a warning to what we were about to go through that evening.
Dell and I were swimming, looking at the fish, taking a few photographs, and all of a sudden, a small orca arrives, which was very interesting. And then 3 other big ones arrived, which became terrifying. I noticed and pointed down that they were feeding on a giant manta ray. So I figured, all right, well, they got some food. Maybe we'll stay a few more minutes. But then we realized it wasn't SeaWorld. That manta ray was almost gone and they still might be hungry, so it might be time to get out of the water. Being in the water and seeing them in nature was just exhilarating and terrifying. And it's an interesting feeling.
Not long after setting sail, Billy spotted a large area of unique landscape. He called to set anchor and we prepared to go ashore.
Oh, it's just beautiful just walking around the terrain. I mean, you don't get that anywhere in the world like that. That one spot was Galapagos.
Once we got to the top of this large, unique land structure, we realized it was the remains of two extinct volcanic vents that were right on the shoreline.
We were probably the first people to walk on that in 100 years, maybe forever. It was just not a place that people went.
Billy was determined to get the second sculpture completed by day's end, so he flagged down the landing boat and we descended back to the pickup point. As soon as we got down to the lowland and back down to the shoreline, Billy immediately found trash, placed on the shore by the sea, placed in the sea by humans. We pulled into this huge bay where the lava flow turned into mangrove fields that went back into these narrow fingers.
The heat was extreme. I started with a long flexible plank and made the siren.
I turned around and I looked over my shoulder and saw the boat behind me. And then I looked closer and I saw the crew on the boat. The captain, Alvaro, Felipe, they were all watching Billy as he raised that siren sculpture.
And it was a perfect spot for a siren because, you know, the cove, luring them into a dead end, you know, up on the rocks, moving, you know, luring them into the Perry Bay. Those are things I think about when I get to the site and I'm hiking. And what is this environment here? What could it be saying or needing or wanting?
After hours of northward travel, Billy spotted another pair of orcas and decided to look for a possible landing site. 3 frigate birds began to circle the boat, then flew off toward this really small beach. It seemed like a great spot to stop. Unfortunately, the captain didn't feel the same way. The captain called the beach Playa de los Muertos, Beach of the Dead. He anchored the vessel a good distance away from shore and asked that the small landing boat not touch land. Billy had to jump in and walk onto shore. It was amazing to see that there were so many dead carcasses on the beach. The beach had definitely earned its name. It was quite an unforgiving spot, as we were to find out.
The terrain was really hostile and the heat was terrible, unbearable.
And it was hotter than hell. We didn't bring enough water. And the wind was blowing against the cape of the frigate's wings, but you were trying to push it, and we had been there for hours, and the heat and lack of water.
It almost took me
It
over.
almost blew you backwards.
I needed water, I needed to rest, I needed to get out of the sun. You know, it was a Dr. Frankenstein moment, you know, where the creation almost kills you.
I think we were so exhausted at that point, we looked at all that trash and said, there's nothing we can do here. We've been lucky to get back to the boat.
Nobody's ever been on this beach. Nobody probably will be again. It's not easy to get to where we went, and nobody else is going to do this.
just a few hours north, and we were at the equator. The backdrop was Wolf Volcano, and Wolf Volcano just happened to had erupted just months earlier. So there was all this lush greenery coming down the side of the volcano, scarred by this fresh lava flow that just carved a path down right to the water's edge. The beauty of this landscape was mesmerizing. It was unlike anything we had ever seen before. Of course, that was until we landed on it.
You look at the landscape, and there's this beautiful volcano that erupted a few months earlier, and just rivers of lava coming down through the green of the volcano. And then you go to the shore, and it's a debris field of garbage. And you wonder, well, if this is the most pristine place in the world, and this is happening here, you can just imagine what's happening elsewhere.
We stopped there for the next sculpture because Billy had envisioned, as he called it, a colorful line on the line. And we weren't sure what that meant until we got to the equator. And then it all made sense. The line that he was referring to was the equator. So he did. He built that totem right on the equator.
But it was a challenge, physically and mentally.
Then I remember it almost slipped and crowned you on the top of the head. You caught it just in time. And it was funny because it was a totem full of hard hats.
Every time I completed a sculpture, Dell and I and the crew made sure that we took at least a big bag of stuff with us, as much as we could, to put in the hold of the fishing boat. Not only making the sculptures and making a point with that, we still wanted to try to take as much back to the recycling area on the island, back to the village. And we did that and took a boatload of stuff off. It was better when we left than when we came. Unfortunately, it was impossible for us to take everything off of the sites. There was just too much of it, and beyond our resources. But we did what we could. That's all any of us can do.
As we completed our journey along the east side of the island, we were on our way now to the west side. I put the camera on the boat and I was taking pictures of the waves breaking on the shore.
Mm-hmm. And you got some good ones.
I almost went overboard. The captain had to navigate us through some of the largest waves I've ever seen before. It seemed very difficult and dangerous as we rounded the northernmost point of Isle Isabela.
We anchored in that one little spot, but for some reason on both sides of us were 30-foot breakers, and it was terrifying.
We had already snapped 2 bolts so far getting to this point of the trip. So when he set anchor in between these 2 sets of rolling waves, the only thing we could hope for was that this bolt wasn't going to snap a third time. Day 6, we began our journey southward along the west coast. The captain rounded Ecuador Volcano, and we crossed the equator for the second time. The crew had successfully advanced to the halfway point of Billy's planned journey. He was a day ahead of schedule and had only one more life-size sculpture to create. We slowly crept along the west coast looking for debris to create his final sculpture. As we slowly creeped down the west coast, Billy spotted no accumulated debris. Then, The bolt broke for the third time in the engine, and we were forced to stop. The captain found a wonderful spot for Billy to explore while the boat underwent the repairs. With Ecuador volcano towering in the background, a strong, peaceful energy was clearly felt, and the sea creature was created.
When I got back to the cove, making the sea creature seemed to naturally happen.
Billy decided we would go around Fernandina and look for a possible landing site. Unfortunately, we found that wasn't going to be easy. The water was calm enough for the landing boat to get Billy onto this shoreline and able to step foot on the beach. And almost immediately upon him stepping on the beach, and the sun started to disappear. It was the first really significant storm we had the whole trip. Now we were running almost 2 days ahead of schedule, and we were getting real close to the southern coast, which was going to be the roughest seas of the entire journey. Billy's concerns now were to find the debris he needed to finish his final large piece, and then to locate a perfect location to put it before reaching that extreme southern coast.
But over here they keep it pretty clean. So I'm going around and just trying to find as much as I can to make this final piece. We're well into our second week, and it's been great, but it's a little tough on us being on this boat and trying to get everything done. On the west coast of the island, there was little debris. The national park keeps this area clean as the tourists visit this area. But every island in the world has this problem. Stuff just comes from the sea. You know? Here we are in our second week on this boat, trying to make something happen for good. Large sculptures that I'm making around this island as warning. It's a warning because this trash is going to come alive one day and it's going to kill all the humans. Here in this, look at this. The Galapagos, most pristine place in the world just about, and there's trash all over it. Not so much on this side because all the tourists come here and the national parks come here and clean it up and make it look good. If you go over these volcanoes to the eastern side, it's loaded. This is going to be my mermaid, my fifth, and most likely last large piece, and she's coming together pretty quick. Now we making her a little angel to watch over this place, guard it. She's one of my guardians. It's the same way where we live. We live in paradise too, and people trash it. Come out there and do whatever they want, and trash it. No respect. Everywhere I've been in the world is the same thing. All these places everybody wants to go. Most beautiful places in the world. You get there and it's just trashed. So I'm trying to show people we can change it a little at a time, just through education and art. Just come along. We keep doing the same thing, not changing. So, in my small way, I'm trying to help it. And I'm finding myself at the same time, making my art. That's what most artists do, I guess, right? Try to find themselves. What a place to find it. Galapagos. I would suggest you all come and check it out, because there's a lot more good than there is bad. For now.
Things were definitely starting to get tough. The seas were just rough. It was constant boat rocking day and night. The sea, the sun, and the hard work were all beginning to take toll on both Billy and myself. Below the towering volcano Sierra Negra, Billy contemplated cutting the 14-day expedition to 12 days. He returned to the boat determined to get his final piece finished and standing by day's end tomorrow. The captain set sail just as the sun rose, and he began to round the wide southwest point of Isabela. A few hours later, the captain anchored in a cove surrounded by giant cliffs, covered with green foliage. Caves and huge boulders lined the water's edge. This location was used as a landing by hunters of wild pig. A flat boat landing was chiseled by hand into the lava. Billy suggested that wherever there were people, there would be trash, and he couldn't have been more right. As soon as we got on the landing, there was trash on the ground. Across the other side of this boulder-lined cove, there was a huge cave, and to the right of the cave,
Don't fall, Billy.
Billy found the perfect spot to put his final piece, the mermaid. The final piece had been placed, completing Billy's artistic objective. It was time to celebrate, not only our return home, but the success of the expedition.
Not too bad. It's right there.
It was alive with wildlife, and some of the wildlife we hadn't seen. Of course, there were marine iguanas and there were penguins, but we also got to see fur seals and Galapagos hawks that were circling in the sky above, It was really a unique location and a perfect location for Billy's final sculpture. As we rounded the southern coast, once again, the sea began to roar. But this time, we had the pleasure of watching those massive waves slam into the cliff sides from a safe distance behind them. After an hour of rough sailing, the crew was exhausted. The captain anchored in a calm, hidden cove, and everyone caught a few hours of rest. It was a necessity. We were just completely worn out. This was our last stop. Because the journey was not authorized, we had to wait until dark to enter the port again. As the captain turned the boat towards home, we all watched the final sunset of our journey. Both Billy and I got our gear packed and put it on board the launching vessel. We arrived at the harbor under the cover of darkness. A huge feeling of relief was shared by the entire crew.
And the best is when we're finally going back to shore at the end, and I give Felipe the knife as a present. And he opens it up, takes it out of the wrapper, takes it out of the box, and looks and goes, "Wow!" And then he throws the box and the plastic into the water.
We thought we all had an understanding, but apparently it slipped.
Obviously, there was more work to be done. By bypassing the national parks, I meant no disrespect. I wanted to go and help them, and I think that bringing attention to the problem of their being under-resourced, not being able to go to the east side of the island and clean, is because of the funds that the government isn't giving them. Now, if I can meet with the president of Ecuador and show him this film, maybe they'll give more money to the national parks.
In my opinion, this place is paradise. And I hope through Billy's art and the message and the film that we can help keep Isabela and all the Galapagos Islands to remain paradise. That would be my hope.